and welcome back to Rugby with Pads. As part of our week of content, we're going to be doing Monday to Friday mock drafts all week. So this is the first one of many to come. We're going to be producing daily episodes, not even weekly episodes all this week, Monday through Friday. We're going to start off with an interesting one, which I haven't talked much about. We're going to be talking about auction drafts. So sit back and listen, and I hope you enjoy. Pass him over back to historic Sam, previous Sam, Sam from a couple of weeks ago, to take you through that. Hello, and continuing on with our mock draft mania, we're going to look back at a draft that I did a little while ago. I did it on the 11th of July, in fact. So this was all part of creating what you're hopefully seeing now. We did an auction draft. Auction drafts are tough, and I do not have a great deal of experience with them. Not going to lie. They are a really interesting way of playing fantasy football, in the fact that rather than having a turn-based system, you get to bid on players that are put forward. Each person gets their turn to put something forward, and there are a lot of strategies held within. I am not hugely experienced. I did an auction league last year. It was good fun. I came up with some good players. Got Austin Eckler, Cooper Kupp. I actually rode that to a victory in the championship, and yeah, it's really interesting because you have a set budget, a bit like Fab, when you're in season, but yeah, you've got to create your entire team. So let's kick it off, and we'll watch along to what we did. I cut it all up. It took about an hour and 10 minutes. So rather than do this live, unlike the others, I'm going to comment over this. So we set up the mock in Sleeper 12 team. We initially did a nomination phase, and we'll get into that in a second, and a duration phase of 60 seconds, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receiver, tight end, and I think it's 5 bench positions. So pretty standard setup when it comes to mocks. Funnily enough, this took the some of the information from my League of Record mocks that I've been doing as well. So that's why we've got this in place. Now, for every player that gets put forward, so if you're in the one slot, you get to put the player forward first. You have to bid. So if you're nominating a player, you have to bid. That's why you see here at the top, there are people with maximum and what their total is, because you still have to bid at least some money for the rest of your players, and there are 12 slots. So that's why you've got a minimum bid held back as well. Now, Justin Jefferson is the 101 in this format. This is a half PPR format. And as you can see, his price goes up pretty quickly. I bid 36 just to kind of move it along and make sure I knew the UI. And you can see everyone at the moment is pretty much in the same position. We're wondering who's going to get it, etc. Is there going to be a last minute bid? Now, for most auction bids, right at the end of the last 10 seconds, if you bid, it resets the timer to 10 seconds. We've set it to a minute, and don't worry, later on we will move it up a little bit. Now, you can see someone spent 64, wow, a third of their budget, and then straight away went back to back with the LSU monster. We cut these a bit shorter with Jamar Chase for 55. So this user has used so much, nearly 130 of their budget. Shortly after that, I thought it was taking a bit longer, so I set the offering phase a little bit lower, so we could speed up, and we do speed up again. Christian McCaffrey goes for 65, and this is where I start getting involved. So I didn't want to go for the top couple because it was always going to be overly expensive. I didn't want to spend a third of what I had available to me early on, but I did want to come away with Austin Eckler simply because it was a challenge I gave to myself, and I ended up spending quite a bit on him. And you'll see it's gone up. I originally bid on 55, it went up to 60 just before the time turns. I bid in with 62. It goes back to 10 seconds. I wait, and I get him, and that is my first on the board, and that sets the tone. Because moving forward, you then have to budget everything. Now we see Saquon Barkley go for like 54, Cooper Kupp goes for 46, Tyreek Hill goes for 49, and we're seeing that a lot of budget. So 200 as a budget doesn't go very far when you've got players like Bijan Robinson going for 49. I show some of the players here that are going up. I then nominate Travis Kelce, mainly because I'm thinking, right, well, let's just see how the market will adjust. And it adjusted, and Travis Kelce went for a heinous amount. We'll see here. I just set up the bidding because I put 38 in there. It went up straight up to 41. And I thought, is this a bit too hot for me in a half PPR? If it was a full PPR, I might be considering spending nearly a quarter of my budget on Travis Kelce because he gives such a positional advantage. But this is where the strategy behind mock drafting, auction drafts, sorry, getting that wrong, there's a lot of things going down, comes into the play, because you've got to be considerate of all the players you've got left as well. Because if you spend too early, you're left filling out your entire roster with dross, and you might want to give up on certain positions. And as I've said in the draft 101, 102, etc., giving up on a position is fine. A.J. Brown goes after a couple of other players. I'm just trying to pick out some. Jonathan Taylor went for 52. I think that's probably a bit steep compared to the fact that I paid 61 for Eckler. I think there's a bit more of a drop off. Bijan Robinson, I think, was a fair value at 46 there. What you're seeing here is people going for the first round picks. All these players are people that you would see in the first round, and that's what happens. You drag people off by ADP. I missed out on Stephon Diggs, so I've gone here, and I thought, well, am I going to go in for Devontae Adams? He ends up going for a good amount. And I think he ends up going for like 45 maybe. And I just think it's a bit too hot for me. I don't want to be spending that much, seeming as I've already spent quite high on Austin Eckler. And I've seen the way that running backs are going very, very costly. Case in point, 45 for Derrick Henry in a half PPR. So I'm thinking, right, okay, I want to secure someone who is going to be a volume play, and I go for Amon-Ra St. Brown. I was thinking, okay, well, let's have a think about him. There's 20 seconds left here. It's currently gone up to 16. I'm thinking I want to make a bid that's going to see it off a little bit, and I go for 28. And I end up going for 29. No, 28 in the end, that's right. And I end up securing him. So in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you'll see him add my team. So he is my second player off the board. So already I've spent 61 plus 28. I've spent a huge amount. I spent 89 on two players. Jalen Hurts goes. I think we've already seen Patrick Mahomes go as well. Josh Jacobs was a player on my list because I think in this kind of format, you probably want to go for players who are not drafted highly in ADP, but you see as being a massive advantage. And unfortunately, I think Josh Jacobs just got a bit too hot for my liking, and there was a bit too much interest around it because people were scrabbling to get hold of running backs. So Josh Jacobs, who I would normally look to pick up early third, late second, went quite high because there was this run on running backs and people wanting this elite production. So he goes for 45. Now, auction drafts is interesting because you don't have to go for players you don't want to. If they land to you, you just don't bid. You can bide your time. If you feel like more players who have in kind of standard redraft 5th round values are better for you, you go for those kind of players. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm setting up some draft queues, effectively, people I'm interested in. And I was really interested in DK Metcalf. People have soured on him. And I think I can see why they might have soured on him in PPR because there's going to be less volume for him. But I think the touchdown potential for him and the big playability, the yards ability for him is going to be great. You can see me here. I'm looking at other people, and I put a bid in of, did I put in a bid of 19? And I think that's great value, considering A.J. Brown went for 42. And personally, in my tiers, and what I would always do is go back to your tiers ranking in the same way that you would do normally and look at where you have people and judge accordingly. Saying, well, I don't want to go into this guy because I've got 3 more people in other tiers that I think are going to be suitable. So my first 3 off the top, 61 for Eckler, which is probably a bit of an overspend, 19 for DK Metcalf, and then we've got Amon-Ra St. Brown at 28. Ramondre Stevenson is a player that I am not particularly favourable on, and you'll see I pressed the pass button. I wasn't interested in bidding, so just going to take it out and just wait for the next one to come along. But it's interesting seeing the running backs, everyone is going after them, and there are still teams without running backs. So it'd be interesting to see because you don't want to be left behind, and you'll see a bit later that maybe I get left behind a position, but it's maybe the way I play, and I do normally, give up a position, and all of you who listen to this pod will probably not be surprised who it is. Got some notable names: T. Higgins going for 19. Najee Harris for 33, Pollard going for 35, which I think is a massive overspend. And these are all players in my tier-based rankings that I do not favour. I think Nick Chubb was an interesting one at 50 a bit earlier. Devontae Smith, I was interested in, but he went at 22. Travis Etienne, I've got no interest in. And Mark Andrews, right, this is the start of the other tight ends that I'm interested in. I wanted to just wait on this one. I took a look at what my budget was and thought about the players I'm doing. And if I go for Mark Andrews and go in for him, what does that make sacrifice me elsewhere? Well, I need a second running back, and I know I'm going to have to pay up well for them. And I probably want a third running back just to make sure that I have a competitive advantage. So I start putting running backs in my queue, and I've got Mixon, who I think is going to go for about 20. Gibbs, who I think is probably going to go for a little bit more because I think people see a bit more upside with him in the passing game, and a couple of other players as well. And you'll see what happens next. Lamar Jackson goes, and then Jahmyr Gibbs comes up, and we do start bidding on him. Someone else nominates him. I think I'm up for I was the previous nomination. I think I actually put up Lamar Jackson, hoping that other people would bid on him. I'm then weighing up, do I go all in on Jahmyr Gibbs, or do I wait for Joe Mixon to come up? What are the running back options? Joe Mixon's going to be a cheaper version. Are they going to have similar range of outcomes? I do believe they are. I think they're both going to be league winner territory. But I go in on Jahmyr Gibbs because I there was a little bit of me that says I haven't come up to the plate for a little while. Olave goes 21. Keenan Allen goes. Joe Burrow. Aaron Jones goes for a good amount. Aaron Jones, who I think he hasn't had a bad season for a long time. But I'm not sure if this is his season. Debo is trading on name value. And then Joe Mixon comes around. And again, those of you who've listened to the podcast know I love the prospects for Joe Mixon. I think he is going to get away without a caution this year. It sounds like these menacing charges are not being treated as hugely serious by the league yet. Maybe it's a case of Alvin Kamara where he gets deferred. If he has done anything, I'm not condoning it, but for the purposes of fantasy football, get on my team. There is a great opportunity there, and he becomes my flex option there. So I've started out Austin Eckler, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, DK Metcalf, and Joe Mixon. I was interested in DeAndre Hopkins. Not sure where he lands there, so there was a bit of uncertainty. And I'm thinking I have got 5 players who are all in my kind of top 3 picks. So I'm thinking, right, well, I'm now filling out bench spots, so I need to go down a tier in terms of expense. And I'm thinking, right, well, who's the tier break at the tight end? And for me, it's Darren Waller. He is the next on that kind of next list. I'm thinking, right, well, if I go for him with the budget I've got 33 that I can spend on any one player. I've got 40 left. If I go 22 on Waller, that really hampers me for later negotiations and later bids. So I wait. I do wait, and I see Chris Godwin go, and I put him forward. I think I'm thinking, well, he could be in my list. He goes for 13. I missed him, but there is a player who I'm more keen on. We see another run on tight ends. TJ Hawkinson going for 21. We see Carl Pitts going, Calvin Ridley, who I'm not particularly interested. Terry McLaurin, who I thought would have been good value at 16 as a number 1 pass catcher, unknown on the pass giver. Signal caller side, sorry. Yeah, we're not sure how Sam Howell's going to behave. Then we see George Kittle going, and I wanted to keep an eye on Justin Herbert because Justin Herbert as well was a tier break for me when it came to quarterbacks. Thinking, is it going to be too rich? I did some calculations in my head. If I go for him at 20 plus, potentially, that is where he's projected to go. I hamper myself elsewhere and I have no depth. So I'm thinking, right, am I going to go back to my fundamentals? And if I think about this in a redraft, I've effectively got 2 first rounders, maybe 2, well, 1 first rounder, 2 or 3 second rounders, and a third rounder. I'm thinking I've spent a lot here. So I'm going to go down and go for a 5th rounder. And 5th rounder comes out to me in DJ Moore. I go for 12. It seems like people have been bullish on wide receivers. He gets bid again. I go 11. I end up bidding 13, which is probably 1 more than I needed to. But at the end of the day, it leaves me with a round number of 20 left. Do I make the bid? I do make the bid. Yes, there he is. And he gets on my side in 7 seconds. So that leaves me with some good bench depth. And I'm thinking, right, I might just have to focus on getting my core squad now because I've now got a little bit of bench depth. Are there players further down who I can do? I'm still keen on Darren Waller, and I was keen on Drake London at 14, but I'm just thinking with the expense I've done there, I'm going to have to sacrifice on a player entirely. And you'll see in a bit the strategy I do take. Now, there are plenty of players still out there who have got a lot of money, and I'm looking at the team on the other side of me. One's got 91 available, one's got 74. I do bid on, I put Darren Waller up to see what he's going to go for, because he's probably my last my tier, thinking that I'm not really going to get him. I just want him off the board, and I want there to be high competition for him, so that he goes for a lot. The reason being, when you put someone up who you think is going to be quite a lot, it then reduces, or there's going to be competition for him who's desirable. It reduces what everyone else has, so it puts you in a better spot. In the later stages, you probably want to have slightly more money than everyone else. No, I mean, no surprise there, to make sure that you have more maneuvering for bidding, but while balancing the fact that you want to ensure your team's health. Now, there's some interesting ones here. Damian Pierce goes at 29. He is a low 6th round player. And if you think of the fact that I bid 13 for a 5th round player, it shows you that the positional rarity here is a very different game to what you're doing in standard redraft, snake drafts, or your traditional, taking turns kind of arrangement. Now, I'm looking down the list. I'm just thinking about people who are projected, and I see a couple of names that are interesting. Deontay Johnson being projected at only 1, and I know I'm not particularly keen on him. I actually do get Drake London. I didn't think I did, but I got Drake London, and I'm thinking, right, do I just need a 5th wide receiver? And I see Deontay Johnson. He was projected to go at 1, so I put him in my list. I was interested in Trevor Lawrence because he was the next tier break as well, and I'm thinking, if I don't go for him, I can't afford him. I've only got a max bid of 7 available to me now that I've gone Drake London. I've made my bed, and now I've got to lie in it, and I've got not much to play with. So I've got to find value at both the tight end and QB position, and this leads to a lot of waiting. What I want to do, I know I'm not going to make any actions here, but it was interesting to see how running backs were so highly valued in this system. Half PPR, they typically are. They're where the money is, and they're the high draft picks. But even Alexander Mattison, who hasn't been proven as a running back 1, going for 20 plus. 20, I think 22 here. Yeah, that's right. Which is 1 less than Joe Mixon, who is a proven running back 1. I think it's crazy. So, it's a completely different style. And if you're going to go in on doing an auction draft, make sure you know your way around the ADP of players. You make sure you know the board, and you know what kind of outcomes you want to get. In the end, I go for Jared Goff, because I'm thinking, right, well, I've got a stack there. I've got both Jim Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown, which in retrospect may have been a bit overkill, but I think the Lions are going to have a good time in the NFC North. So I wasn't, whereas I would normally advise against having 2 pass catches, I'm thinking you've got so much upside, and there are actually, for the first 6 weeks, there are less pass catches available because you've not got Jameson Williams available to the squad after he bet his games away a little bit. So it was interesting, even seeing players who are going to play bit parts, the likes of DeAndre Swift, Rashard Penny later on, going for good money. We're then getting down to the next tier of wide receivers. I think I'm good on wide receivers at this point. I'm thinking if Deontay Johnson comes up, I can bid 1 or 2, and I've still got a bit of maneuvering around me. I'm seeing the players come down, and there are players who haven't got many options left. And if you looked at the ADP board now, there's not many good options and a lot of roster fill. So you want to balance going early with not overspending. Brandon Ayuk, I thought, was a good steal at 14. Javonte Williams, lots of confusion around him. And because you have a budget available to you here, you want to make sure you're doing the best with that budget. And there are some players here that I think maybe went overkill. Deontay Johnson, I did secure him at 2. No surprise there. I think I then saw back-to-back George Pickens going at 2. And this is crazy. Those are 2 potent wide receivers. But because there are so many wide receivers, these guys are just also runs. They're afterthoughts, because everyone spends money on the top 3 guys. So my advice, if you're going into an auction draft, is make sure you don't miss the running back room, because you can pick up a lot of value later on in wide receivers. I mean, Jahan Dotson, who a lot of people are speaking very highly of, going for 3. I put up Isaiah Pacheco on purpose as a bit of a naughty one, knowing that I wouldn't get him, but knowing that he would absorb 20 plus, around 20 of someone's budget. And that means there's 20 less competition later for a position I need. So, because I'm still without a tight end at all. And because I've gone late on tight end and I'm thinking I can only spend realistically a couple of dollars on tight end, I want to get more than one. So I want to make sure that competition is lessened, and people are spending their budget on players that I don't consider to be particularly valuable. And in this format, based on the fact of who I've got, I think I do go for another running back at some point. Maybe I can't remember. We'll have to look together, guys. But yeah, you can see the range of people going. It's crazy how much high bidding there is at the start and how much it drops off towards the end as people run out of money. And you'll see a couple of players actually left with a lot of money in the tank because they didn't use their budget wisely. Jordan Addison goes for 4. AJ Dillon goes for 17. That's a lot, cracky. Even James Cook, who is got so many questions marks around him, goes for 14. Then we get some players who I'm not hugely hot on. If I had a stack with Patrick Mahomes, I might go for Kadarius Toney. That was an interesting one. Zach Charbonnet goes for 4. Yeah, there's some interesting ones. And you know what? On the point of stacks, that's really interesting because you're not beholden to the run. So you can see I very easily got a really nice super stack in Detroit. And I end up going, this is what I end up going to do. I see some RJP run, I'm thinking, can I steal him? And I do. I offer 2 right at the last and thinking, right, I'm just gonna have him because I do think he's got a chance to have some good games potentially at the start of the season if Javonte Williams is going to run out. And thinking about the balance of play there, I'm happy with that. You can see even top names, historical top names like Michael Thomas only going for $1. So there's a really interesting dynamic going on in this one. I'm thinking, right, well, I need a player now, and I need to go maybe a bit harder and just test the water on tight end. We haven't seen them go for a little while. I put 2 up with Tig Okonkwo. I can't bid anymore. I can only bid 5. The computerized version of Ed has beaten me here with 5. Dak Prescott goes for next to nothing. He goes for 2. And this is interesting because at that point, no one needed another quarterback. So quarterback is another one that you can wait for in this format because you either pay a huge amount for 46 or and I ended up putting a bid in for 2. Just got gazumped on that one. But people are down on Dak, and I think he's a very serviceable quarterback who is part of a tier involving Tua as well. I thought I might try and get on there. It's interesting to see David Njoku, who's predicted to go at 20, and I thought that's way too much to pay. And even the group here, Pat Fryermuth as well, who has had some good games, but I'm just thinking down the list here. Dalton Schultz could be a target maybe later on if everyone's already full on tight end. Maybe I can look to him. I'll see how that goes. I like the idea of Anthony Richardson as a number 2, but maybe I'm going for someone a bit more consistent when it comes to the quarterback position because I've got Jared Goff who can have off games. Yeah, we'll have to see how it goes. So I'm contemplating at the moment who needs what at the moment. Everyone's got pretty much a full roster except me with a tight end. So I might have the availability to go for tight end, but I don't. I wait for a little bit. I just, pop Aaron Rodgers in there because no one really needs a QB. I can pick him up for 1. And the idea behind it is if someone else nominates him for 1, you've got to pay 2. So I thought this is the cheapest I'm going to be able to get him if someone else wants him. Dalton Schultz comes up. I end up having the highest offer at this point, but got gazumped once again. I can't make a bid over 5 at this point. You can see there are some players who can't make max bids more than 1, which means they can only pick up the player they nominated. I looked to go for Komet, but I wasn't able to either. And I thought that's a shame because I think he will have a decent season. So I'm thinking players with historical upside, and I nominate Tyler Higbee. I get him for $1, which I think is a good pick. And I think if you're punting on those positions and you've got a team like I've got with Austin Eckler, Jahmyr Gibbs, Mixon, Metcalf, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, you're laughing at that point. And I also do the same with Mike Gesicki to finish off my draft as well. I'm just thinking, I'm just gonna go in on him, and you can see now it speeds up quite quickly because there aren't actually that many players with any money left, so we have to speed up at this point. And it goes on. There's a couple of players left at the end who I've skipped out, but you can see how it all balances out. If you want to take a pause of anything, you can take a look. I mean, we'll take a quick pause on our team. We've got who do we got at the top there? I'll go through it for the audio listeners. If you've managed to get through this audio, guys, well done on you. This format is definitely better. on YouTube, I can say that. But Jared Goff, Austin Eckler, Jahmyr Gibbs, and the money. So I'll go do the money as well. Jared Goff for 1, Austin Eckler for 61, Jahmyr Gibbs for 29, Amon-Ra St. Brown for 28, DK Metcalf, which I think was a steal at 19, Tyler Higbee at $1, Joe Mixon at 23, DJ Moore at 13, Drake London, probably a bit of an overpay, and I didn't really need him because I've got quite a lot of depth there. At 15, Deontay Johnson at 2, Samar J.P. Ryan at 2, Aaron Rodgers and Mike Gesicki at 1 apiece. And I end up spending not quite all my money. Actually, I ended up spending 96. So normally in a league like this, it would be carried forward as fab, but you get a reload of fab budget. It doesn't make a huge amount of difference. But yeah, that was my my experience doing an auction mock. Really enjoyed it, and I think if I put this into a calculator, a draft calculator, it's very early in the day, I'd feel happy with that. And if I was going to give myself a score, I'm going to knock myself down for having the Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown understack, which you know what, as those two players, because they're both high volume or suspected high volume, I'm not too upset about it, but normally I would be. But yeah, tell me what you think, guys, in the comments. Let me know, if you'd be interested in an auction draft. We're thinking of putting our League of Collusionary Gentlemen into a auction draft 1 year, but we'll have to see how it goes. We've still got a lot of intermediates and newbies in there, so maybe don't introduce this quite yet. But that's what this mock draft mania is for. It's for looking at different styles of drafting and different league types that you might not experience or that we might not cover in as much depth into in this pod. So with that, we'll skip back to Sam in the future, and I'll speak to you on the other side. And thank you so much for listening. Really appreciate it. Tune in tomorrow. Tomorrow we have another exciting one for you. What have we got? We have a Dynasty Startup Superflex coming in at you. Should be really interesting. And you know what? It was really interesting doing it because I haven't done a Dynasty Startup since I started my Dynasty League. So it'll be interesting to see if everything I did back then, I would still do now. You might see me taking on some of the same players. It's an interesting one. But I'll let you guys be the judge of that. Thank you so much for listening. As always, really appreciate all your support. You can tweet me at or tweet your threads or on Instagram at Rugby with Pads. I'm on all the socials these days. Obviously, you can find this episode if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can find it on YouTube, again, at Rugby with Pads. You can support the show, rugbywithpads.com. I'll leave you now. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you on the virtual gridiron.